History remembers many wars. But few like this one. A war where a superpower believed nothing could stop it. And a nation believed nothing was worth more than freedom. What followed was not just a conflict. It became a storm that shattered empires, birthed revolutions, and carved its name into the mountain stones of Afghanistan. This is the 1-hour story of the war that shook the world. It begins not on the battlefield, but in the silent corridors of Moscow. The year is 1979. Cold winds sweep through the Kremlin walls as senior Soviet commanders gather in a dimly lit room. A long wooden table stretches across the hall, covered with maps, Afghanistan cities marked in bold circles, its mountains in jagged red lines. The Soviet leadership sees Afghanistan slipping into chaos. Political infighting, uprisings, assassinations. A government that Moscow helped bring to power is now spiraling out of control. To the Soviet generals, Afghanistan looks weak. A fractured neighbor. A pawn on the chessboard of the Cold War. And so, the decision is made. Quietly. Confidently. Send the Red Army. In their minds, it's simple. A few divisions of elite troops, a few months of operations. And the problem will be solved. They will enter Afghanistan as saviors, restore order, and return home in triumph. But history has always warned. Afghanistan is not a land that bends easily. As Soviet aircraft roar toward Kabul, the world watches with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Will this become another Vietnam? Or will the Soviet Empire crush resistance with its overwhelming power? When Soviet paratroopers finally land at Kabul airport, they encounter almost no resistance. Tanks roll through the capital like iron giants. Government buildings are occupied within hours. A new leader, favored by Moscow, is installed. And for a brief moment, a very brief moment, it appears the Soviets have won. But beneath that uneasy silence, Afghanistan is waking up. In the mountains of Kunar, the tribes whisper. In Kandahar's deserts, the elders gather. In the valleys of Panjshir, young men grip rifles with old memories. And across the nation, a single message spreads. The Soviets have come. Prepare. The first sparks of resistance begin with small ambushes, a convoy attacked on a mountain road, a patrol disappearing into a narrow pass. Soviet commanders dismiss these incidents as minor problems. But the ambushes grow. And grow. And grow. Within months, what began as scattered skirmishes transforms into a nationwide uprising. The Mujahideen are born, not as a single army, but as a million sparks scattered across a rugged, unforgiving land. These fighters know every cave, every stream, every hidden path through the mountains. They do not fight like a conventional army. They strike quickly, vanish into the rocks, and appear again where no one expects. The Soviets respond with overwhelming firepower. Gunships thunder over mountain ranges. Jets scream across the sky, unleashing bombs on suspected hideouts. Villages burn, smoke rises, and entire regions become battlegrounds. But something strange happens. The more the Soviets destroy, the stronger the resistance becomes. Every home destroyed creates 10 new fighters. Every loss strengthens the resolve of the Afghan people. Every drop of blood hardens the determination of tribes who have defended their land for centuries. Soon, the war draws global attention. The United States sees an opportunity. A chance to bleed the Soviet Union. Just as the Soviets once supported America's enemies in Vietnam. Pakistan becomes the frontline state, training fighters, providing intelligence, and opening its borders for Afghan refugees. Saudi Arabia pours money into the cause. China quietly supplies weapons. And the CIA begins one of its most secretive missions in history, funneling arms to the Afghan resistance. Then comes the moment that changes everything. The arrival of the Stinger missile. A small, lightweight tube. but deadly. A weapon that gives a single fighter the power to shoot down a Soviet helicopter. Soviet pilots become terrified. Their dominance in the air collapses. And for the first time, the Soviet Union realizes, this war is slipping out of our hands. Meanwhile, inside Afghanistan, the Mujahideen grow stronger and more organized. Commanders like Ahmad Shah Massoud master the art of mountain warfare, turning valleys into fortresses. Massoud's Panjshir Valley becomes a symbol of defiance, surviving assault after assault from the largest military machine on Earth. The Soviets launch massive operations, tens of thousands of troops, hundreds of tanks, waves of aircraft. But they cannot break the will of the fighters hidden in caves, trenches, and mountain shadows. The war drags on. 1 year becomes 2. 2 become 5. And then 10. For Soviet soldiers, Afghanistan becomes a nightmare. Young men arrive full of confidence. And return home haunted, injured, or not at all. Stories spread of mountain passes where entire convoys vanished. Of snipers who appeared for seconds. Of fighters who moved silently through the rocks like ghosts. Families in the Soviet Union begin demanding answers. Mothers ask why their sons are dying in a foreign land. Public protests grow. The economy weakens. The political system starts to crack under the pressure. And then, a new leader rises in Moscow. Mikhail Gorbachev. He looks at the war and calls it a bleeding wound. He orders a review of the conflict. The more he learns, the clearer it becomes. This war cannot be won. The Soviet Union begins planning its exit. But leaving Afghanistan is not easy. Retreat under fire is more dangerous than invading. The withdrawal begins in 1988. Long lines of Soviet vehicles crawl through mountain roads, crossing silent, snow-covered landscapes. Soldiers look tired, broken, older than their age. They do not leave as victors, but as survivors. In February 1989, the last Soviet commander crosses the Friendship Bridge. He pauses, looks back at the land where so many lives were lost, and whispers a line that becomes immortal. This is not a land that can be conquered. But the war doesn't end when the Soviets leave. Its consequences spread far beyond Afghanistan's borders. The massive costs of the conflict weaken the Soviet economy, accelerate internal collapse, and contribute to the fall of the Soviet Union itself, once the world's greatest empire. Afghanistan, meanwhile, is left shattered. Cities destroyed, families displaced, millions of refugees scattered across borders. The Mujahideen, victorious but divided, soon face each other in new conflicts that will shape the future of the country. Yet the story of the Soviet-Afghan War remains one of the most powerful reminders in history. Empires may rise. Armies may advance. But a nation fighting for freedom, a people rooted in their land, cannot be crushed by force. From 1979 to 1989, Afghanistan proved this truth. Not with advanced weapons. Not with tanks or jets. But with courage, unity, and the unbreakable strength of its mountains. The war ended. The Soviets returned home. And history wrote its final line. You can enter Afghanistan with power. But you cannot leave with victory.